There is one thing that determines the quality of your life above everything else, and it's not the car you drive, the house you live in, or how much money you make. It's not an external form of success. I'm sure you felt the highs and lows of life, like you're being pushed around by circumstance and situation. Your good days are good, but you can't fully experience them because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And your bad days, they dictate the rest of your week. They leave you feeling bitter and resentful. You feel like you're not in control. You feel like you have to work harder. You have to grind more, hustle harder. You feel like if you could just try harder, if you could just do more, then you'd be more. You'd be successful. It feels like you're missing something, like you're not good enough. I promise you there's nothing you're missing. You just have to work on this one thing. It's emotional intelligence. You see, when you have emotional intelligence, circumstances and situations don't dictate your actions. How you feel doesn't dictate your actions. You're guided by morals and values. You build character. You're able to delay gratification. You're able to make good choices that set you up for the future. When you have emotional intelligence, it's like having your stats full in a video game. You're able to conquer everything that comes your way, whether it makes you feel good, bad, or indifferent. You're able to make the decisions and take action towards things that you want to do no matter how you feel. Before I even knew what emotional intelligence was, I promise you I didn't have it. I always looked for feelings. I looked for feelings in drugs, in people, in money, in success or the lack of. I was constantly being pushed around by how I felt. I had no idea how to regulate my emotions without some external thing. And for me, that was drugs. For other people, it could be scrolling, porn, your relationships, food. It could be overspending, underspending. It could be all of these things that dictate how you feel. But when you learn emotional intelligence, you're no longer pushed around by anything outside of you. You understand how to regulate your emotions. You understand that your emotions have a purpose. When I first realized what emotional intelligence was, that was the first thing I realized. I'd realized that the good feelings, the bad feelings, and everything in between all had a purpose. In this game of life, they're like your navigation system, your GPS. When you don't feel good, when you feel angry, when you feel depressed, when you have a bunch of anxiety, it's just showing you that you're out of alignment. And the circumstances and situations you go through that leave you feeling good or bad are your biggest teachers, right? How do you start building emotional intelligence? Well, first, you have to give yourself some grace. You have to understand how you feel is not who you are. It's just how you feel, and it changes. How you feel in this moment will be different from how you feel in the next moment. So, what is this moment trying to teach you? What are your emotions trying to tell you? Just start to think, how am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling the way that I do? I noticed that how I felt was largely because it was a habit to feel the way that I felt. Before I understood emotional intelligence, I had practiced feeling depressed, full of anxiety, angry, in fear, in doubt, in lack, and all of these other negative emotions. There's so many different ways to build your emotional intelligence, but the biggest thing is just to become aware of how you feel and be grateful for it. To understand what your emotions are. They're a tool. Everything in this reality is meant to show you something. So how you feel is just showing you something about yourself. It's showing you how you could become more, how you could handle a situation differently. I saw something the other day that said, your negative emotions are there just to show you that they're not supposed to be there. They're not who you are. You're not just a depressed person. You're not depressed. You're not anxiety. You're you, and you feel depressed. You feel anxiety. You feel angry. You feel sad. But you can also feel happy. You can also feel joyful, glad, grateful, all of these good things. It's really up to you and how you're perceiving each situation. Your perspective has a lot to do with your emotional intelligence. If you constantly have a perspective that paints you out to be a victim, of course you're going to feel like crap. Of course you're going to feel like a victim. But when you start to control how you look at things, you can start to control how you feel. A big part of emotional intelligence is your perception, how you're viewing each situation. So when you become aware of how you feel, you can start to become aware of how you're viewing each situation. When you're angry, someone does something that makes you mad. How are you viewing that situation? Did they do it to you, or did they just do it because they were angry? Are you taking on their emotion? When you start to become aware of your perspective, through becoming aware of how you feel, you can rewrite the story. You can become the narrator instead of just a character in this story. I know people have negative things to say about main character syndrome, but think about it. If you weren't here to experience this, who's to say any of this even exists? You are the main freaking character. You are. There's no other way to go about it. Until you recognize that you're the one writing and living the story, nothing's going to change. You're always going to be a victim to circumstance, situation, and how you feel. I no longer want to be a victim to how I feel. I no longer want to be pushed around by how I feel. I want to start to dictate how I feel. And when circumstances and situations that come up and make me feel in a way that I don't really wish to feel, I'm no longer afraid of it because I know that it's just showing me what I need to see. I know that it's just showing me my perspective. I know it's just showing me my potential. Things are going to happen. We don't have negative emotions for no reason. We don't have good emotions for no reason. They all have a reason. It's really important to separate yourself from the emotion. Separate yourself from how you're feeling. You are not depression. You are not anxiety. You are you. And how you feel is only for this moment. Don't bring it into the next. You don't have to be depressed. You don't have to be anxiety. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of shit for saying this, but I spent over a decade of my life depressed and angry. I spent over a decade of my life doing hard drugs because I was depressed and I was angry. Little did I know that had been what I was practicing, not who I was. Once I started to build emotional intelligence, cultivate my awareness of how I'm feeling and how I want to feel, and see the gap in between, I was able to walk that gap. I was able to move from how I was feeling to how I wanted to feel. Not every day is the best day in my life, but every day is not the worst day in my life either. My life is good. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm carefree because I understand how to regulate my emotions. I don't have all the answers, but if you're interested in talking to me, join my Discord below, click the link. I also have a free North Star alignment guide that helps you get clear on what your goals, what your dreams are, and helps you align with them through understanding the 5 primary powers. I love you. Dream on purpose.